Welcome to the chapter 22 of the discussion today, which is on organizational structure and design. In this chapter, we are going to learn about what is organizational structure and what are the different design options present in the organization, what is the difference between organizational structure and design, and different types of design, and what are the variables affecting design, and how design affects organizational performance and other things. So, as an objective of this chapter, we are having to develop an understanding of organizational structure and design, key elements for organizational structure, which are work specialization, departmentalization, chain of command, span of control, centralization and decentralization, formalization, and organizational structure, its determinants and outcomes, organizational designs and employee behavior, changes in designing an organizational structure, organizational designs, Indian organizations, empowerment styles in Indian perspective, restructuring Indian organizations, what are the challenges and responses to it, impact of culture on Indian business organization. So, this will be the whole span of the discussion, and in the first we are going to cover about organizational structure and different aspects of the key elements of organizational structure and some of its determinants and outcomes in the first lecture. So, to start off with, we will try to define what is organizational design and what is organizational structure. Design is something when managers make a conscious effort to think of how to do things in the organization and how employees will do their work. That aspect is called design. How, in what ways employees will be interacting with each other, how they will be placed in their hierarchies, and what will be the relationship amongst the employees, how will they access the resources. When this thought process goes on in the manager's mind, this is called organizational design. And to the main part of that design is known as organizational structure. So, when we are talking of organizational structure, it is the anatomy part of the design. It is defined as the stable relationships and processes of the organization, and structure is defined as the stable relationship and processes of the organization. As a whole, it is told to be the anatomy of the organization or the framework of the organization. So, it focuses on different things like what are the different positions in the organization, what are the different functions of the organization, how rules and procedures are to be formulated, and who like how to prescribe authority. These are certain things which comes under, like when you are talking of organizational structure, and it is used mainly to regulate the behavior of the employees, and so that uncertainty is reduced in the organization. People know their reporting relationships, they know where to procure resources from. So, uncertainty is reduced through when we are talking of organizational structure, and there is somewhat of control, like when we are talking of with respect to employee behavior, so of individual employees. So, that is what the organizational structure is. So, we can tell like organizational structure defines how formally jobs are defined and placed in organization, and how tasks are divided, grouped, and coordination amongst the different tasks. Now, there are certain key elements of organizational structure which are based on certain design questions. The key elements are like work specialization, departmentalization, span of control, unity of command, and centralization, decentralization, and formalization. These are like some of the key elements of organizational structure. Now, when we ask the question like what is the relevant design questions for which this structure is the answer, we find like when we ask the design question like to what degrees your activities will be subdivided into separate jobs, the answer that we get for it is work specialization. Like to what extent, like should they be divided into small parts of jobs or subdivided. So work specialization is the answer for it. When we are thinking of like on what basis the jobs will be divided, what is that, on what basis, on which the jobs will be divided, the answer for it, just like the answer for this design question is departmentalization. When we are thinking of like to whom the individuals and the groups will be reporting, what is the reporting relationship, then the answer from the structure side is that of chain of command. When we are thinking of like how many individuals can a manager control at a particular point of time, then the answer is of course span of control. And like what is that number of employees which managers can effectively direct at a particular point of time, answer is of course span of control. When we are talking of where does the decision making authority lie, so it is like we are talking of centralization and decentralization. When we are talking of like to what degree there will be rules and regulations in the organization and to direct the employees and the managers, we are talking of formalization. So these are the different design questions and their relevant answers from the organizational structure side. What we will do now is we will try to visit each of these structures separately, and each of these key elements of the structure separately, try to find out the details of it, and then like we try to relate it later on to the different design options when we will try to learn about organizational designs. So firstly, we will try to see what we mean by work specialization. Work specialization means the degree to which like the work is or the task in the organization is subdivided into separate jobs. What is done over here, like if there is a big part of the job, if you're trying to make a product, so do we divide it into small parts and tell like only each of them together, like done separately and then assembled together will make the product or not? Because it is not possible in many cases to go for this like designing the whole product at a particular time. So what is done over here is the whole particular task at hand is divided into subdivided into small separate jobs. And what happens over here is it, and then and this is also called division of labor, in the sense which makes efficient use of employee skills, and efficient use of employee skills increase employee skills through repetition. Because in job specialization, what is done, a bigger task is broken into small jobs, and each employee, based on their own skills that they are best at for doing a particular job, are placed at each of the jobs. Because it is true that all employees do not have the same skill to do all jobs in same way. People differ in their skills and their expertise. So specialization, in work specialization, what is done, the job is divided, and the employees, based on the skills like which they are best at, are placed in these different jobs. So what happens is that it utilizes the efficiency of the employees in a much better way. And because of doing a repetitive work day in and day out, they also can improve in their work, because it becomes a part of habit and practice, and they know how to do it in a better way. And that is where it does, like it increases employee skills. Third is, like when you are talking of terms of errors committed and loss making, so there is less of downtime in this, as because people know how to do this thing, and they are like familiar with doing the same thing again and again, and it increases the productivity. And so when we get specialized training for doing certain things, it becomes more effective and efficient, and people learn also use of specialized equipments. So this, when work specialization is there, you find there is an increased productivity. But this part of the organizational structure, element of the organizational structure, has a flip side to it also. Like doing the same job day in and day out may increase stress, boredom in the members, because they don't have new things to learn, and they don't get any like excitement from doing the job itself. So they know like when to begin, when to end, as a routine, repetitive type of job. So maybe sometimes they get disinterested in the job itself, and which may lead to decrease in productivity as errors try to creep in at this point of time. So as a result of that, again, sometimes in the late 1960s, new design options like job enlargement came up, where people got exposure of different types of things to be done, and so that you can learn new things. So what we can say over here is, it is not that job specialization or work specialization should be done away with because of the boredom, stress and other factors that is generated, nor it always leads to increase in productivity. So, or it can be applied to all sorts of job. So what we have to do is, we have to see the nature of the work, the things that it demands, and then we have to find out like what degree of specialization is required for this type of job, and beyond which maybe specialization is not required, some enlargement or like exposure to other types of works better over here. So that judgment has to be made by the manager or the top people of the organization to know if we need work specialization, then what for what type of job and to what extent. Next, we come to a discussion about departmentalization. Departmentalization is the basis by which jobs are grouped together in the organization. So, if we can understand, jobs are grouped together either by functions or by the products or by the process of doing things. Like when we are talking of jobs are grouped together by products, means organized, or it could be departmentalization, could be based on geography also. So, when it is first by function, then different functional areas like engineering is one division, manufacturing is one, maybe sales is another. So, all the functions are different and departmentalization is done according to that. So, for making a particular product, what happens? These functions provide support to making all the products A, B and C, whatever that company makes. Next type of departmentalization is departmentalization by the product. When the organization wants to concentrate more on the product and wants its product to make a place in the consumer's mind, then what happens, like each of the products are given emphasis, and the departmentalization is made according to the products, and all the functional facilities are under each of these products. That type of division is called product division. Each product is placed under a particular manager and he takes care of these products, and all the functions like sales, marketing, manufacturing, everything is put for these functions get repeated for each of the products. So, each of the product line has its own set of functional people. Next is when we are talking of geographic departmentalization. So, this is maybe due to the market that we want to enter, special nature of the market in which the demand is there for the product, and we are the competitors present around. That all these features may influence the decision of like whether to make the product, whether to go for a product based thing, functional based thing, or departmentalization should be like geography based. So, when you are talking of geography based, then according to geographic locations, the division is made, and there is a top person who takes care of that geography to see that whether the business is growing in that part of the country. So, that departmentalization is called departmentalization according to geography. When we are talking of departmentalization according to the process, then it so happens like there is a mix of the whole thing of the products and the functions, and it is called a process departmentalization. So, also like it could be other ways of departmentalization could be based on the nature of customers whom you are addressing to, and the like authority also. But mainly these four, the functions, the functions, then the product, the geography, and the process are the main four ways of departmentalization. And this takes care of the process of departmentalization, takes care of things which are called the complexity in the organization. When you are talking of complexity in the organization, it is the degree of like how many distinctly different job titles are there. So that is what we are focusing into, and number of groupings and number of like distinctly different units and departments. And what we can talk of, like either there is a horizontal differentiation or whether it is a vertical differentiation. So when you are talking of horizontal differentiation, it is the number of units at the same level. When you are talking of vertical differentiation, it is the number of levels in the particular organization. So either you are going for a tall structure or you are going for a flat structure. So horizontal differentiation and vertical differentiation, these are the two defining qualities of departmentalization. Next, when what you are looking into is like mainly now what happens is process departmentalization is becoming more important for organizations which are addressing the needs for the particular customers. So what they do is they take in customers' need and they try to process it. They make the product move to various departments, and then you get the like product which is designed or made for the customer. So this is also known, and when you are targeting a particular type of customer, so these are also customer based departmentalization, like the segment of customer that you want to reach. Each of your products is defined according to them, and that is called customer based departmentalization. So in nutshell, departmentalization is the division of the division or grouping of jobs based on certain parameters, which could be function, which could be product or the service, which could be the geography, and which could be the customer, which could be the process. What will be the nature of departmentalization? Of course, it is defined by what the organization wants to focus on. What is the job at hand, how it wants to specialize, how it tries to answer its customer base, all these factors. Next, we come to the discussion on the third part of this one, the key elements of organizational structure, which is called chain of commands. In chain of commands, the most important part of discussion is that of authority, like how that authority is spelled from the top to bottom. It started with is, and when we are talking of chain of command, it is an unbroken chain of command from top to bottom. When we are talking of we are discussing chain of command with respect to two things. First is the unity of command and the second of that of authority. When we are talking of chain of command, it is and also you are talking of unity of command, means only a subordinate has only one boss and the instructions follow from that boss, and that is called unity of command. And when you are talking of authority, means by virtue of the position that the manager is in a particular organization, that position gives the person some formal authority to control the behavior of the subordinates. That is called authority, to oversee the behavior of the subordinates, to give directions. So that authority comes from that is a formal authority which comes directly from the position that the manager joins in the organization. Now, what with unity of command, so person knows like he or she has to answer to the instructions of only one boss, which sometimes reduces complexity and less of for stressful for the individual as compared to when in a situation where a person has to work under two bosses. And if these bosses, which sometimes happens in matrix organization. Now, when this is the situation, a person has to work under two bosses, and if these bosses are having conflicting demands that they make from the employees, then the employees become stressful. So, unity of command is preferred in that way. But it also means information is flowing very slowly from top to bottom. If there is one person reporting and to only another person, and me in our present situation, organizational situation, what we find, like because of network structure where all persons are connected with each other, information from the top to the other people in the lower level of the organization, it reaches very fast due to this networking process, because all are connected with each other and they can share information with each other, like through different channels of horizontal, up or down, or vertical, diagonal communication pattern. So that's why, like, even if it is less stressful, the chain of command, when you're talking of unity of command, maybe it is somewhat not practiced to that extent today in present organization, where we are moving more towards teamwork, where each of the employees are connected to each other, and we have lot of help from the technology which helps to maintain connectivity, because sharing of information, fast completion of work, individuals able to take their own decisions, or what like people is the work pattern people are believing in now. Next, we move on to a discussion on the next part of the key element, which is a very important element, which is called span of control. In span of control, what happens when you are talking of span of control, it defines like how many employees can a person control at a particular point of time. So this exactly is defined by the nature of the job. If we can understand, like if the nature of the job is such which is like less of complexity in nature and less complex jobs with more sort of routine activity, less of guidance is required, less of uncertainty is required, maybe people have large span of control. You can control many people at a particular point of time. But when it is so, like the nature of job is complex in nature, you have to give one-to-one guidance, you have to share one-to-one information, and maybe you have to monitor whether people are doing their jobs properly or not, and try to make them learn things. So in those cases, maybe it is not possible to guide or take care of too many people at a time. So in those cases, the span of control will be less as compared to the span of control when for a job which is of like less complex in nature. What we find over here is like when again other factors like which defines the span of control, and the factor which is important like the physical placement of the workers. So if the workers are doing a simple task, are physically placed close to each other, and needs little coordination from the manager, then manager spends little times for planning for them, and maybe they could be controlled by a larger span of control. So in that case, like in span of control, what is most important is the frequency of the actual relationship, which is important rather than the total number of relationships. What is important over here is like the two factors which are what questions we can ask is what is the required number of contacts which is required. So if the task is more ambiguous in nature, and then what happens, maybe it requires more interaction, so more contact is needed. Like what is the degree of specialization? So if, as already discussed, like if people are doing less complicated job, then managers may be able to oversee more people at particular time. The ability to communicate. So clear communicators can manage more people. So it depends on the nature of the industry and the type of the job, so which and the manager who is playing the role to do all these factors define what will be the span of control, what is the complexity of the function, what is the degree of planning required, what is the degree of coordination required for a particular job, whether there is a geographic continuity or they are placed geographically apart, then whether there is similarity of functions or not. All these things will try to define the degree of span of control for a particular manager. So again, if we find like there is a tall organizational chart, means with greater height, which means there is a less span of control. If we have a flat organizational structure, which means there is a broader span of control, and at the same level there are different units, different people, more people at the same level, and then this is greater span of control. So how do the subordinates interact with the managers as a part of span of control is sometimes it is direct, where the managers are know face to face the employees and they want to communicate with them, and also when there is a cross communication amongst the employees, they like when there is a greater span of control, then employees try to communicate with each other because they have so many peers amongst them at the same level, they can communicate with each other. Third is there could be communication between groups of subordinates, like if there is a large span of control, groups, the people are form groups, and there could be communication between groups of subordinates. So the different types of interaction which takes place, Greikunus, he gave a particular formula of what could be the number of interactions in a particular organizational setup, which we can link to which we can link to the span of control in the organization. So that formula is stated by I is equal to n multiplied by 2n by 2 minus n minus 1. That is the formula. I is equal to n multiplied by 2n by 2 minus n minus 1. That is the formula which defines the span of control, where I is the number of interactions and n is the number of subordinates. When we are talking of again how many managers, what should be the span of control for managers at a particular level, Ralph Davis pointed out that for operating level managers, the maximum span of control is 30 to 30 workers, and at the executive level for middle managers and top managers, so at that level it is 3 to 9 subordinates. Beyond that, the span of control it breaks down. It's not possible to control beyond that level. What are the different determinants of appropriate span of control are, like we can say, like different factors which are influencing the span of management. It can also be called as the different factors which are influencing the span of management are, like what is called the competency of the supervisors and the subordinates. If the subordinates are competent enough to do their things on their own, span of control will be large. In a sense, you don't have to give individualized attention to the subordinates, but if they are not that competent enough and they need one-to-one guidance, maybe span of control will be small. So it depends on the competency of the manager and the subordinate first, like what will be the span of control in a particular organization. Second is physical dispersion of subordinates. If they are widely spread, then maybe span of control will be small, but if they are closely placed, then span of control will be large. Then degrees of interaction required with the followers, whether it's close interaction required or distant interaction also can help, like the time, frequency of the interactions required. Also the what is the extent of non-supervisory jobs in the manager's work, so which will help to define what is the time that the manager can spend for this supervision part. And if like all the employees have to have at least one discussion with him, then what is the proper span of control for that? Next is what is the frequency of new problem coming up, and does it require, like a discussion has to be made amongst the employees. So all these factors will define the span of control. So what are the drawbacks of narrow span of control is sometimes we spend extra on defining new layers of people, like when you're talking of a very narrow span of control. So additional layers of levels of management. So there is an increased complexity of vertical communication, who will pass on the message to whom, where the communication block is there, whether messages are withheld or not. So these problems will come up. Next, it encourages very tight supervision, employee supervision by the manager, and less of employee autonomy, where they can decide to some extent how to do a particular job. So these could be some of the disadvantages of a narrow span of control. Next, we try to find out what are the important factors which defines strategy and define structure, and one of the key factors, of course, key elements to continue with are the centralization, and which is one of the main aspects of design, is centralization and decentralization. When we are talking of centralization and decentralization, so these are called like where the power is concentrated in the organization. So if it is like centralization, it is the location of the decision making authority in the hierarchy of the organization. So it's like the it's centrally located, all the decisions are taken centrally, and it is then passed on to the lower layers or the members of the organization. So it is the degree to which centralization, it's the degree to which decision making power is centralized at a particular point in the organization. When we are, or maybe all is centrally located, or if there is a departmentalization according to the geography, it is located at the region office of the particular geography. When you are talking of decentralization, decentralization is the degree to which decision making is spread throughout the organization. So this both has advantages and disadvantages. When you are talking of centralization, so if like when all the major decisions are centralized, then what happens, there is a less chance of misinterpreting facts according to own understanding and misrepresentation of it to the external world. There is a centralized system which takes care of everything which is there regarding the product, its design and the market and everything, and also for the employees in the organization. But when there is a great geographic span, people are spread across, the products have like are in different range. So what happens at that point of time, and we are working in markets which are having a differential demand. So sometimes it could be any of the reasons or all of them working together. Like some people may go for decentralization. So why decentralization? Giving some powers to others to decide till a particular level of accountability will help to make decisions fast and answer to the demands of the market quickly. Otherwise, what happens, if everything is centralized, then it will take time to for the request to generate and come to the central office and get sanctioned and get ultimately the benefit of that sanction and to get the decision for it. By that time, the maybe demands of the outside environment is no longer existing. The customers may have changed their mind and may have moved to the competitors, finding like their answers are not, their queries have not been answered within a particular time. So, to hasten the process, to make it more easy and timely, so what happens, and to make the top management less burdened from taking decisions regarding every petty small things of the organization. So, decentralization could be the answer, but again we have to take care of, have a balance of, like, to understand what decision is to be centralized and what it is to be decentralized. If some decision is very crucial to the functioning of the organization or important for the functioning of the organization, those should be centralized, because in decentralization there could be chances of misinterpreting the things according to their own needs or understanding, and different versions may come out of what are the rules and how to make decisions about it, how to make decisions in for different situations coming up based on the managerial acumen the managers present at different levels and the employee's own discretion. So, because it will matter, the differences will matter. So, some very important decisions which are crucial to the functioning of the organization should be centralized, and what could be decentralized to some extent, and what level that the organization has to fix up for a smooth running of the organization, fast answering of employee queries and their needs, those things could be decentralized. Next, we look into the determinants of organizational structure and its outcomes. So, strategy of the organization, the technology of the organization, the size of the organization, and the technology, the environment, all these define structural designs, and like the cultural norms present, the whether it's a mechanistic organization or not, all these things, or organic organizations, these things come up and influence, like results from the interactions of these factors when we are talking of organizational structure and the determinants of organizational structure. We will try to look into details for each of these determinants separately. First, we will try to focus on the strategy of the organization, like why do organizations differ because of their strategy. What are the different strategies which are there in the organization? The different strategies which are there in the organization are, like, we can just see to the things. Like we have innovation strategy, which is taking care of the innovations made in the organization, and which focuses on the introduction of major new products and services in the organization. When we are talking of cost minimization strategy, it is a strategy that emphasizes on tight cost control, then avoidance of unnecessary innovation or marketing expenses, and price cutting. When we are talking of imitation strategy, it is a strategy that seeks to move into new products and new markets only after the visibility has already been, the viability has already been proven. Now, the relationship between the strategy and structure is that when we are talking of, like, this innovation strategy, it is more into like more of an organic nature. Why? Because organic nature of the organization, it supports innovation, creativity. It supports creativity in the organization. It gives spans for people to interact with each other and communicate with each other. So, when you are talking of innovation strategy, organic structure is the answer to it. If it is not, if it is a mechanistic organization, innovation is not possible, like it is not supported by that type of organizational structure. When we are talking of like cost minimization strategy, it leads to mechanistic structure which is have some sort of tight control, extensive work specialization and high formalization and high decentralization. So, when you are talking of formalization, it is the degree to which there are specified rules and regulations. What are the expectations from the employees? They are clearly stated and written, and what could be for the violations of the stated rules and regulations, what it like, and it is effective by enforcing it. So, this is called formalization, and when we are talking of cost minimization strategy, tight formalization, tight mechanistic structure are the answers to it. When we are talking of imitation as a strategy, it is leading to a mix and match of both mechanistic and organic structure, mix of loose with tight properties, so that like for imitating you need to learn also from the environment, you need to like practice, see that whether it is working for you or not. At the same time, like we should try to control the cost related to it and the behaviors of the employees related to it. So, for that is, and what happens, like if you have to imitate and we have to bring a product onto the market after the viability of it has already been proven, then we have to take care of both the things, some new features added to it and of also the cost part of it, of the products. For that, a mix of both mechanistic and organic structure is the answers which helps to reach this imitation strategy. That is tight control over current activities and loose control over new undertakings. Next, another important factor for which organizations differ is size. So, when the organization becomes more larger in size, it becomes more mechanistic because there are wide number of people, different types of jobs. Like if we do not go for a tight control over it, then everything will run out of hand. So, what happens, which are the characteristics of large organizations are, it's more of specialization, then next is more vertical levels in the organization and more rules and regulations. So, until that is defined, we cannot bind the organization and the different parts of the organization together. So, when the organization grows, initially it may start as an organic structure, but when it goes on adding up to itself in terms of departments, different product lines and ways of doing things, different strategies taken. So, what happened, maybe different strategies are taken for different products, and so what happens when you go on adding up like that, mechanistic organization could be the answer for it. Structures also differ based on technology. So, technology defines how an organization transfers its input into outputs. If it is like characteristics, one of the characteristics is that of routineness, whether it is standardized or customized in its activities. So, routine technologies are associated with tall departmentalized structures and formalization in organization. Routine technologies lead to centralization when formalization is low. Non-routine technologies are associated with delegated decision making authority. So, what we find is like decentralization when we are talking of non-routine technologies. Next part, like why do structures differ, is due to the environment. Like institutions or forces outside the organization that potentially affect the organization's performance. And the key dimensions of environment are capacity, volatility and complexity. Like when degree to which an environment can support the growth, volatility is the degree of instability in the environment, complexity the degree of heterogeneity and concentration among environmental elements. These will define like how the structure will look like. So, we will proceed with this further when we are talking of organizational designs, because environment, size, technology, these are the factors which define, and the strategy, these are the factors which define like what will be the particular design for a particular organization. Here we have a mention of this. We will consider this further when we are talking of organizational designs in the next lecture. Thank you.